Yo, what's happening, everybody? Thank you for checking out another episode of the Dynasty Drive, and we're doing it live tonight. So I'm joined with Troy King. Troy, thank you for hopping on the podcast with us tonight. I appreciate it, my man.
No, man, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to, finally meet you face to face and get into talk football with you, man.
Absolutely. And free agency is here. It's an exciting time, I think, for football fans everywhere. So before we kind of get super into the weeds on all the stuff that we want to talk about in terms of movement and who's where and what's good, what's bad, I'm sure anybody who's watching my show or checking out my stuff probably already follows your great work. But please take some time to plug where they can find you if you don't. I know you do some great stuff.
Oh, sure. So
confidential as well.
Oh, yes, exactly. So you guys can find me at Football Guys. So I recently joined the Football Guys team. I'm super excited. I am coming out with an article very shortly. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. It should be coming out this week. So check it out. You'll see me promo it. And for those who don't know me, again, I'm Troy King. You can find me at T King Mode on Twitter. And I am one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential. We're on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're doing every other Wednesday during the off season, but we're really excited. We have some awesome guests for pretty much the whole off season. So definitely check us out. And yeah, that's kind of what I got going on right now.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll get right into it. We'll run through, I figure, position group by position group, and we'll start at the top with the quarterbacks. I think the biggest thing that happened with the quarterbacks is Dak stayed in Dallas. No tag game still. He gets the long-term deal there, which is, I think, great news for all the offensive weapons in Dallas. So before we get into the other guys, what do you think? Personally, I don't want to say truther, but I've been a big Michael Gallup guy forever, and I still think we get a bit of a Michael Gallup bounce back this year with, hopefully, fingers crossed, a healthy Dak all season. But what are some of your thoughts about how Dak being back in Dallas impacts the rest of the guys in the fold?
Sure. First, I want to say it's about damn time, right? This was
pay the man,
but also they should have done this like a year ago, maybe like 2 years ago, if they were being smart, right before the QB market had to be reset. But that's another story. It's amazing for every offensive player on the Cowboys, right? Before Dak got hurt, he was pretty much the best QB in fantasy, right? Because their defense was so horrible. He had to throw it a million times. And this is not only good for the wide receiver options, but I believe it's also good for Zeke because, with Andy Dalton and those backup quarterbacks, it was really easy to stack the box, right? Even doesn't matter how talented Amari Cooper is, how CeeDee Lamb is, when you don't have competent QB play, they're not going to be as fantasy relevant as they can be. Dak being there, everyone's stock is up. I'm trying to buy as many Cowboys as I can. But no, this is incredible. And this is the best place for Dak, too, just because we don't, there's so much speculation in terms of if he went somewhere in free agency. He would have been a QB1 anyway, I believe. But I'm glad that we don't have to guess anymore. I'm just excited for the whole Cowboys offense now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned Andy Dalton. So kind of shockingly, I think Chicago committed super early to him being their starter. I don't know that I really full-blown believe that. I just think there's still a chance that goes haywire. But what are your thoughts about, Allen Robinson gets tagged. He sticks around. I know Darnell Mooney was somebody I've been trying to acquire a bit through the offseason. I'm still trying to, but probably a little more lukewarm on it with Andy Dalton there. Are you surprised at all that they committed to him so fast and made the move to bring him in as their starter?
Yeah, I'm very. it's probably the most. It was the most, I guess, underwhelming move of free agency. It's just like, okay, you went from Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles, back to Mitch Trubisky to Andy Dalton. Right. Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, it's like man, right? So it's like Allen Robinson is gonna be fine. I think everyone's value pretty much stays the same. No one gets a boost, right?
You're right.
Allen Robinson is still going to get a million targets. Darnell Mooney, he's going to be fine. Maybe his stock just goes up just because he just one more year in the offense.
Yeah,
that's the only. But everyone's value pretty much stays the same, right? Andy Dalton's not a game changer. He's not terrible, but he's not great. It's a mediocre signing, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like, you're not the worst quarterback in the league, but you're just like the other guys, right? So that's how I feel. Like, it's just, I'm just happy I wish Allen Robinson was playing with a more competent quarterback. However, he's still going to get 1 million targets, so it's hard to complain. But everyone's stock is pretty much the same as it was before.
It just feels underwhelming because it went from like a week straight of Twitter and beat writers everywhere being like, the Bears are making a big play for Russ. They're going for Russ. And then it's like, Andy Dalton. Like that's what.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And then I kept telling people, Russ ain't going to the Bears.
No,
like,
it was never happening.
Bears fans were holding out hope, and I'm like, guys, it ain't happening. Look, you got a very you got the consolation to the consolation prize in Andy Dalton.
And in New Orleans, it's, I guess the easy way to put it is, who do you think? It's Jameis or it's Taysom Hill? And Taysom Hill's bogus fake contract that's not what everybody initially overreacted to.
It should be Jameis, right? But the problem is that Sean Payton has this love affair with Taysom Hill. I don't get it. It's just like anytime I think Taysom Hill shouldn't be a thing, he is a thing. And, you know, he's good for fantasy in terms of he's a running quarterback and he's dynamic. So if he is the starter, he's going to have significant fantasy relevance. And he did well last year. He exceeded my expectations of being a starting quarterback. I thought he was going to be a lot worse just because I didn't think that he was a good quarterback. I'm not saying that he's, you know, going to be a QB. He might just be a QB1 just because of his rushing. But it's just bizarre because, again, he's 30, 31, and now he's like, this is his breakout or his chance of getting an opportunity. It's just such a bizarre situation. It should be Jameis. I believe this. Regardless, I like the Michael Thomas. I like Michael Thomas. I like Kamara still. You know, obviously it's different not having Drew Brees there, but I'm still very confident in those solid, you know, starting pieces. The auxiliary guys in terms of like Smith and anyone else I'm not super excited about, or maybe Adam Troutman. We'll see what happens. You know, I just prefer if it was Jameis because you know he's a gunslinger. I believe he would be better for the entire offense, but I think either way, the fantasy players are going to be fine in the offense.
I am dying to see Jameis feed Michael Thomas 150 targets. Like I just want Jameis to come out and pepper him with targets all season long. The rest of the quarterbacks, you know, minor movement here. It seems, you know, a Russ trade isn't coming like we said already. Quick thoughts. You think Deshaun Watson gets dealt prior to the season or no?
I think.
And why will it be to my Jets and not your Dolphins?
See, here's the thing, right? So I'm going to put the scale aside, right? Obviously, this whole scandal thing is making things more complicated. But just putting that to the side for now, I believe that he's going to get dealt just because I just don't see why he needs to be in Houston. It's just Houston would be smart to move on from him and gain a haul, right? Because he has so many different trade partners, whether it's the Dolphins, the Jets, the Broncos. We've heard the 49ers talk. So there's so many different destinations that could make sense and would be great for Watson. And I've always used this kind of argument, right? Why it should be the Dolphins versus your Jets. If I was Deshaun, right, he has the whole no trade clause, but it could be, you know, the contracts could be amended and things like that. It makes more sense for him to go to the Dolphins because you know that Deshaun Watson, he doesn't care about money or anything. He wants a ring, right? Mm-hmm. He's already played for Houston. It's been a toxic situation for years, and they've sucked auxiliary all around them. They've made it to the playoffs, but he obviously wants to win, you know, go further into the playoffs, get to the Super Bowl. If he goes to Miami, he's set up for that, right? He's set up with wide receivers. We just got Will Fuller, so that would make sense. Mm-hmm. In the draft, we're most likely going to be drafting one of the top wide receivers as well. And our defense is one of the best defenses in the league. So he would automatically go there. And again, we could be Super Bowl contenders if he was with the Dolphins. The Jets, y'all ain't got nobody. Who's your running back? Like, y'all, you really don't have anybody. You guys got Corey Davis, like, and Denzel Mims. Like, y'all ain't going to go anywhere with them. So that's why he should go to the Dolphins and not the Jets.
It's a fair point. Yeah, the Jets are further away for sure. Moving on to the tight ends. The biggest news was New England locking up all of the premier free agent tight ends. Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry both joined New England. I figured it felt easy to pencil Hunter Henry in there for like months leading up to free agency. I didn't expect them to sign both him and Jonnu. It's fun in a way, but it's also kind of like, am disappointed to see them both kind of cannibalize each other's fantasy relevance. If it was just Jonnu and they didn't, go back and add Hunter Henry as well, I think it would have been easier to ride out and believe that we were finally going to get that really exciting Jonnu Smith tight end fantasy season. What are your thoughts? Do you think, are they both fantasy relevant? Do they eat into each other too much? Is it just kind of going to be like, yeah, they'll both be top 12 guys, but they're like tight end 10, tight end 12 sort of thing?
I don't think they're going to be both tight end ones. I think the problem is they are going to cannibalize each other. Just like you just said, I was very excited for Jonnu when he was the only fish in town. And obviously now you have Hunter Henry. People are comparing, Hernandez and Gronkowski. It's not going to be like that.
No, people are forgetting how good Hernandez and Gronkowski were.
Yeah, they are. It's not going to be that situation. And I love Jonnu. I'm a Jonnu truther, but now and if I had to choose one, I'm going to go Jonnu just because I believe he's, more athletic. You can use him in different ways. You can put him in the back. He could come out of the backfield, things like that. But I believe that I don't want any of them, at least in redraft. In redraft, if I had it, I don't want them because you don't know who is going to be beneficial. And I believe both of them are going to be touchdown dependent, right? I don't think either of them are going to see a significant volume over the other. And it's just whoever scores, really. Whichever one of them scores that week, most likely is going to be, a tight end one. And I see maybe one of them being a back end tight end one, the other one being a high end tight end two. That's most likely what the situation is going to be. But it's Russian roulette. You just have no idea. Like, I don't care who you are. No one knows which one's going to be the guy yet, right? We're all just guessing right now.
Yeah, I feel like you said, even in redraft, there's going to be a lot of luck dependent on all right, pick the Pats tight end that's going to go off this week. I'm with you. I would lead Jonnu more times than not, more often than not, because I think he's more athletic and more exciting in the passing game and can be used in more of a variety of ways. But it's going to be frustrating, especially, whether it's Cam or whether they make a move to come up for a rookie or whatever. It's tricky to predict right now. And it's unfortunate. I wanted to buy into full-blown Jonnu season and, get the hype train rolling, but I agree with what you said. I think it's more likely that one guy probably ends up at that back end tight end one kind of spot, and the other one probably somewhere in that tight end two range. Honestly, some of the more exciting tight end movements for me was stuff that happened later. Gerald Everett to Seattle is something that I'm interested in. It's a little under the radar, or a little more under the radar, but we've seen Russ look to the tight end before. It's been a while since he's had somebody pretty athletic or realistically athletic. There's been a lot of Jacob Hollister and Greg Olsen and stuff over the past couple of years, but
Will Disley.
Will Disley. I think Everett is somebody that now, being kind of the guy at the position for Seattle, can be a little bit of that, sleeper tight end that we're all looking to break out for every year, since there's only 3 or 4 good tight ends in fantasy, it seems like. But yeah, Everett is somebody that I'm interested in, as well as, even though he's a little bit older, Jared Cook joining the Chargers. We saw Herbert be productive in his rookie season. I think with Hunter Henry leaving and Jared Cook coming in and being the guy, I still think he can be fantasy relevant there as well, especially at a position that's just kind of barren across the board on a yearly basis, aside from the top guys.
Yeah, so talking about the Chargers, there are some Donald Parham truthers out there. So
XFL fans.
Exactly. So who knows? Maybe he emerges as the tight end one on the team, but Jared Cook now, it looks like he's most likely going to be it. I can't get excited about grandpa Jared Cook right now. I mean, he's gonna be one of those streaming tight ends, I believe, like in redraft and dynasty. Like, again, you're not gonna get anything from him. So if you're like in a tight end premium league, maybe that's someone you can rely on. But I'm not gonna get too buck wild for Jared Cook. In terms of Gerald Everett, that could be interesting. And I'm trying to temper my expectations so I don't get too excited, because I believe that we've seen similar situations, right? The super athletic tight end going to a new situation. Oh, he's on a good offense. And if Russell Wilson targets him, then he could definitely be a tight end one. The problem is, I don't know how the targets are going to be distributed. I still believe it's going to be the Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf show. And, Gerald Everett might get in the mix, but I don't see him being a highly targeted guy on the offense yet. I think that's wishful thinking. I hope that's the case. I hope that he gets that opportunity. But, with Seattle, he could throw to anybody other. It could throw to any of their tight ends. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't believe that Gerald Everett's like, oh, okay, he's going to be a tight end one now that he's in Seattle. I just don't know how consistent the targets are going to be for him.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. It's such a weird position group every year. It's so tough. I feel like we're all constantly trying to pick who that next big breakout guy is going to be on a season to season basis. So hopefully Everett can get some of that consistent target share there to at least show some sort of fantasy relevance. The running back market, strange. Some of the big name guys, no real movement. Aaron Jones, it felt like everybody had pegged for your Dolphins for forever. He stays in Green Bay, much to the dismay of the AJ Dillon crowd. And Chris Carson, probably the second biggest name on the market, stays in Seattle. And honestly, I think it's probably for the best for both of them. I feel like the best thing that could have happened for I know everybody wanted to see Aaron Jones move into a situation where it was like, oh, he's unquestioned, he's going to get 300 carries, but I also don't know that the situation gets much better than what he's had in Green Bay. We know what he can do there. We've seen what he can do there in the role that he has, and that was with Jamal Williams before he leaves for the Lions. And sure, A.J. Dillon will get some more work, but I think that with Jones sticking in Green Bay, that he's in an elite offense. They know that he's still playing with an elite quarterback, and that he's capable of producing a high-end fantasy season. So I'm fine with I'm fine with Aaron Jones sticking in Green Bay. And Chris Carson, I feel like if he did move on, I know there was some buzz, early on before he re-signed with Seattle that he could end up with the Jets or, another running back needy team. I don't think any of that would have been better than what we know. The biggest knock with Chris Carson is he going to stay healthy and is he going to hold on to the ball? I don't feel much better about putting him in a situation than what he already has in Seattle. I think with him there, sure, Rashad Penny, if he's a thing, or DJ Dallas, who admittedly I have been a bit of a truther for over the last few months. I still think he's worth hanging on to in Dynasty, but I think Chris Carson and Aaron Jones both kind of stay pretty consistent with where they've been at. I don't know if you have differing thoughts or if you share those same beliefs.
I feel like I could talk about this subject for a while because I feel like there was a very small, probably almost minute percentage of people that expected Aaron Jones or Chris Carson to re-sign with their teams, right? Everybody assumed that both of them were leaving because of, the lowering of the cap this year and just, how running back market is, right? You're not expecting them to re-sign. Aaron Jones, yes, obviously I wanted him in Miami. Hopefully we make some moves in the draft, but I was excited about the possibility of Aaron Jones coming. Now, I didn't want to pay him that money, but he's an elite talent. He's been RB1 for the past 2 seasons. We already know how talented that he is. But in the A.J. Dillon truthers, people might call me an A.J. Dillon hater. I don't think I'm a hater. I just think he was overhyped because Aaron Jones was so much better, and people were trying to talk about, A.J. Dillon's going to take over the offense. But I'm glad that Aaron Jones, he's going to be the lead guy. I'm sorry about – man, get out of here, Jones. Can we kick him out of the Twitter chat thing? That's ridiculous. But I believe it's extremely beneficial for Aaron Jones to stay the RB1 with the Packers. Great offense. He's gonna, as long as he's healthy, he should be no less than an RB1 this year. Chris Carson, obviously he's battled through injuries, but he's a very underrated running back. He runs hard. He's a grinder. I'm super happy for him. I believe that no matter where he went, I think he would have been fine. I think this is definitely the best scenario for him as well to re-sign with Seattle. He's going to be the RB1. Rashad Penny, we'll see if he does anything. DJ Dallas, Miami Hurricane. So that's why I like him. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan. I'm a fan of all Miami teams, but that's where I obviously first discovered DJ Dallas. I think that Rashad Penny being around is going to hurt DJ Dallas as like the third down back or any, potential hype that we might have for him. But overall, I think these are good moves by both Carson and Aaron Jones.
In a move that felt much more gross from the outset was Kenyon Drake signing with the Raiders. I don't know. I'm not a big Kenyon Drake guy. I wasn't a big Kenyon Drake guy last year. I felt like that initial second half of that season after he came with the Cardinals, there was a lot of production in a couple big blow-up games. Not that he was bad or terrible last year, but this season got off to a rocky start. He wasn't what a lot of people, I think, expected him to be in that season. And I don't know. I've kind of shifted now from, this is horrible for Josh Jacobs to maybe I'm trying to buy low on Josh Jacobs in dynasty leagues. I don't think it's great for Jacobs that they go out and pay a guy like Kenyon Drake, but it might be a time that I'm willing to go try and buy him very, very cheap if somebody is more put off or more scared than I am.
Yes. The thing about it though, right, is like, so Jacobs, I always say John Gruden hates Josh Jacobs for some
He
reason.
does. I don't know why, but
Because and there's always been the notion that in Alabama he caught a lot of passes, that Jacobs is a good pass catcher. For I don't understand the reasoning why, but he's just never been utilized in the Raiders offense as a pass catcher, even though everyone assumes or believes that he has this ability. They always use other backs to fill that role. Kenyon Drake was probably one of the most surprising additions, probably the most surprising free agency move, if we're being honest, right?
agreed.
Because again, Kenyon Drake isn't like your normal, like typical third down back that just signs with a team. He's obviously was the starter for Arizona. He has the ability to be a starter, but kind of like you mentioned, this is the opportunity to buy low on Jacobs because everyone's down on him. I believe people were already down on him before this signing, just because even though he had a good season last year in terms of just rushing the ball, he had a good season. He dealt with some nagging injuries, but it's always the fact that he just isn't a pass catcher, and that's obviously going to hurt your upside in fantasy. I'm not going to pay up for Jacobs. I'm not excited about him, but if someone is super scared off and you can somehow buy low, then definitely do it, just because he's a starting running back and he's very talented. It's just I'm very pessimistic right now, especially at least for the 2021 season, just because how is he going to be utilized? How much is Drake going to eat into his rushing, not just the pass catching, but he's going to get rushing opportunities as well. So it's a big unknown. And also they traded some of their offensive linemen, or I believe that they don't have the same offensive line as they did last year, where they had one of the best offensive line in the league. So this offseason, there have been some changes. That's also something to consider. So yeah, I'm skeptical about Jacobs for sure for 2021.
Yeah, it's strange. And in a way, it feels like we've already seen the best, maybe, since it seems now more than ever increasingly unlikely that we're ever going to get him in that real true 3-down role where it's like, oh, he's going to catch, 40, 50, 60 balls a year or something like that. It's not going to happen, especially with Kenyon Drake there now. Maybe the only free agent running back situation more gross than that is whatever Houston is accumulating. There's nothing. Talk about the Patriots tight ends being tough to predict. Good luck predicting who is going to get the weird, ugly rushing stat line between David Johnson, Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay. I'm out on all of them, especially in Dynasty. I'm not interested in anybody. It's a full-blown. It's probably my first real, I'm avoiding this situation entirely in 2021. I'm just not interested at all.
And I believe, the saying, everyone has a price. Well, this price has to be
really cheap.
Really, really cheap, right?
Yeah.
When David Johnson resigned, I was actually excited for him. Like, okay, he actually has a little bit of dynasty value. Then Mark Ingram, I'm like, this is gross, but I still believe David Johnson's the RB1. Then all of a sudden, Philip Lindsay, he had so many destinations he could have gone, and he would have been so much more fantasy relevant. And he literally picks the worst situation you could go to.
Incredible.
And I don't know what his logic was. I don't know the story behind it. It was so bizarre that he wanted to go there, because I believe and maybe there's something I'm missing, but he could have gone to so many other teams and be the starter, have an opportunity. But it's just, I feel bad. I believe Lindsay's the most talented, at least at this stage of his career, than the David Johnson or Mark Ingram. But the issue is we have no idea how they're going to be utilized. Hopefully he's good enough to somehow be the RB1 in the offense. If I had to choose one, I'm actually sticking with David Johnson. He was there last year. I believe he's obviously a very good pass catcher. Philip Lindsay, actually, for some reason, he fits the mold as someone who you would think is a better pass catcher, but he didn't really catch that many passes with the Broncos.
Yeah.
And Mark Ingram, I think he's okay. I don't have the stats in front of me, but David Johnson is the best pass catcher out of all of them. So based off of that, if I had to choose one, I would go David Johnson.
I agree. It's like Philip Lindsay. I think people look at Philip Lindsay and they're like, oh, he's a good third down back, but he's really never been that exciting of a pass catcher. And he's also not a great pass protector, which he's not going to end up on the field a lot of times on third down. It is a weird situation. I wish he would have ended up almost anywhere besides Houston, just so he could have a little bit more of a clear opportunity. Any other movement that you're interested to see what comes, like whether it's James Conner landing somewhere, anybody else that you're interested in seeing where they end up in this next wave of free agency in terms of the running backs?
Well, wherever James Conner ends up, he's not going to be an RB1. He's going to be a committee back, unfortunately. He had that one good season where it's like, oh, maybe he has, some potential, but unfortunately, I don't know. Like, there's barely any spots left. There's only so many jobs, so he's gonna muddy up a situation for a starting running back. Now we'll see. There's no one else I'm really that interested in. I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone important. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone important, but
no.
And Todd, Atlanta, I feel like is still wide open. They haven't done. I thought that a lot of these other backs were somehow going to end up in Atlanta, but Atlanta hasn't done anything interesting in free agency. They still got so maybe they'll do something in the draft. But yeah, I'm not excited about James Conner or whoever else is left in free agency.
It's weird. I was just talking about Atlanta last night, and I tweeted, it's like, man, isn't it crazy how fast the cliff came for Todd Gurley? Like, went from being just like 2 or 3 years removed from 1,800 scrimmage yards and like 20 plus touchdowns to a complete and total afterthought. Like, it's wild how fast it came.
And I'm such a Todd Gurley truther, so it hurt, man. It
does.
And then last year he was actually an RB1 for a short period of time, but it was just on the back of touchdowns. He did not look that great rushing the ball. He looked, he looked like he was limp, gimpy, and I just the fall, and that's why the 0 RBers, they were rejoicing because he's a good example. It could happen to other backs. No one expected it to happen to Todd Gurley, but that hurts my soul. I'm still
agreed. All right, we'll wrap it up with the wide receivers. Probably some of the most exciting movement in terms of whether it's players in new places, players sticking around in old places, and a lot of fantasy implications. So the top guys, Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin, both franchise tagged, both staying and with their respective teams. And I think they'll both still be kind of top options. We said earlier that Robinson will still be a target monster. Andy Dalton should pepper him with targets. And Chris Godwin is running it back with a team that looks set on trying to win another Super Bowl. I think that it's reasonable to expect his 2021 to be better than his 2020. So I'm pretty bullish on both of those guys staying where they are. Like we said earlier, it would be nice to see Allen Robinson with an elite option at quarterback for once in his career, dating all the way back to college. Where honestly, it's a miracle Allen Robinson was drafted as early as he was. He played with Christian Hackenberg at Penn State. Like, this man has not had a good quarterback in forever. But the top guys stay where they're at. And are you outlook still bright for you for both Robinson and Godwin?
Yeah, I don't have much analysis on them. And just, hey, Allen Robinson still a wide receiver 1. Chris Godwin should be a wide receiver 1. Like, they're both good. There's not much that I can say that no one else is going to be saying, right? Their situations are unchanged. They're both good to go.
Business as usual. We'll move on to the next guy. We'll shout out my good friend Pete in the chat here. Did we talk about David Cap God, Gettle God, Saquon 2000, Kenny G 2000, Dimes 5K? Kenny Golladay signs with the New York Giants. Do you think Kenny Golladay is a wide receiver 1 for fantasy?
No, I do not. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I believe he's a solid wide receiver 2, probably like mid to low wide receiver 2. We'll see. I believe it's probably better for the Giants than it is for fantasy. And he's going to be fine. Kenny G is extremely talented. I believe that Danny Dimes is going to target him, but I don't want to be too much of just go off the hype, right? It's like, obviously it's really exciting. He's clearly the best wide receiver on the team, but Saquon's going to be back. I still believe it's going to be the Saquon show.
Yep.
And I do. Kenny G, I believe, is going to be the second option. He's going to be fine. I think he's going to be solid. But there's only 12 wide receivers that could be wide receiver 1, and I just believe that there's a lot more options out there for who are more likely going to be a wide receiver 1 than Kenny G.
I think that's a great point. I think that's really what will keep him outside of me ranking him like a wide receiver 1. It's not so much that I don't believe in him or even the situation. It's just a product of how many talented guys there are ahead of him. Wide receiver is just so stacked that You always leave somebody out where somebody comes for you and is like, how can you not rank this guy in the top 12 or in the top 10? It's like, man, there's just so many good ones. Like even all last year, it was like the guys that you had, 13 through 26 or 13 through 30. It's like, man, get through the top 15. And then I feel like you can make an argument for so many different players. So I agree. I think Kenny Golladay will be good. I think he'll get a lot of targets. I do think it'll be the Saquon show, like you said. I think I'll probably end up ranking him somewhere like a high-end wide receiver 2, and probably would be higher if it just wasn't for the amount of guys that I'm really, really bullish on ahead of him. You tried to slander Corey Davis to the Jets earlier. We won't allow it. That's fine. But Corey Davis signs with the New York Jets. I'm excited about Corey Davis coming to the Jets. I know that he has never had a 1,000-yard season. I think that would have happened this past year if not for missing a couple games due to injury. But I think realistically, Corey Davis is going to be in store for better than a lot of pass catchers on the Jets as of recently. As you can attest to, the big bad bully Adam Gase is out of town. You know how that went in Miami. So everybody gets a slight arrow up once Adam Gase is gone. But I think even if the Jets decide to run it back with Sam Darnold, which ultimately I don't think will happen, I think that they will trade Sam Darnold. I think that they will draft either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields at number 2. But regardless of what option of those does come true, whether it's drafting a quarterback at 2 or running it back with Sam Darnold, I think all the pass catchers get a bump because all the receivers, whoever the quarterback is, they're all going to be playing in a scheme that is infinitely more friendly to the quarterback and to the pass catchers than whatever we could try and say scheme Adam Gase was running, which wasn't really a scheme. It was just a hodgepodge of trash. But I'm excited about Corey Davis. I think he's got a legit chance to finish as, a top 24 option at wide receiver just based on the amount of targets he's going to get. And he's going to come in as the lead guy. I think everybody's ready for a Denzel Mims breakout and for him to hopefully be used in a better way. But Corey Davis is going to get used a ton, especially in that short and intermediate game. They're going to do a lot more play action than they had in the past couple of years with Mike LaFleur calling plays. And we'll see some version of that Shanahan or San Francisco type of offense. So I'm excited about Corey Davis. I don't think he's going to be a top 12 guy, kind of like we were just saying about Golladay, but I could see him finishing somewhere, 20 to 24, 22 to 26, somewhere in there, almost based on just opportunity alone.
Yep, I agree. So one thing I'll say about Adam Gase, right? There's one thing he was good at, right?
You only got one. I could say a lot about Adam Gase.
I bet. But this would be a positive for Adam Gase, right? He was very good for slot wide receivers.
Yeah.
Jarvis Landry, Crowder. So that's one thing that he was really good at. Unfortunately, Crowder's most likely going to be a cap casualty. So, he did his service, but I just don't see how you're going to pay him or why you would pay him next season.
Yeah.
But Corey Davis, I agree with you. I think he's the one. Denzel Mims truthers, you can hold on hope, but I believe he's going to be the 2. And he's great, but unfortunately, the Corey Davis signing kind of tells you what you need to know. And they needed to add somebody. And Corey Davis, he had his breakout last year, and we'll see how it translates. I mean, I'm assuming that you guys are going to stick with Darnold. I think you guys should stick with Darnold, try to build around him, beef up the offense, the line, get a running back for God's sake. Like, you still don't have you guys going to draft one, but we'll see. I believe Corey Davis is fine. Denzel Mims, cool. I'm not excited about the Jets, right? I just got to see it, right? I believe they're still and I believe the Patriots are going to be better next year. So I believe the Jets are going to be the worst team again, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be, as bad, but
I think they'll be worst in the division. Yeah, I think it's safe to pencil them in as the worst team in the division. There's just so much work to be done.
Maybe the following year you guys will be good, but you guys are going to be fighting for third. I'll say that. You'll be fighting for third. And that's okay. But yeah, Corey Davis, I believe he could be a low-end wide receiver too, but if you guys happen to get Justin Fields, then okay, I'm a little bit more excited. But Darnold, sure. I think he's fine. I think this is a smart move just to keep him and try him out for one more year.
Well, your Dolphins, we mentioned earlier, add Will Fuller in free agency. He looked like he was playing like a man possessed last year in kind of that alpha wide receiver 1 role. He looked great before the suspension. I'm actually really excited to see him in that offense. Pair up with Tua. I'm a big Tua guy, so I think I love to see them surround him with more talent. I think honestly that if he can stay healthy after coming back from missing the one game that he's got left on the suspension, I think he's in position for a potentially very big year as the guy there and could find himself cashing in a year from now if he hits free agency again. I think it's a great move for him to go there and try and, rebuild the value a little bit. But I think that it's a really good fit. Honestly, I really do. I think him and Tua will be great together, and I'm excited to see how that shakes out in Miami.
Oh, I was very, very excited when I saw that signing. And because beyond the obvious, he's extremely fast, obviously a deep threat, and it helps open the offense, right? So it helps Tua take more down the field shots. Tua had a very low ADOT last year. I believe it was around 7. So there's a lot of dink and dunking. Mm-hmm. And obviously in the last year, we had a lot of issues with wide receivers being hurt. We know that Fuller has had his, injury history, but assuming health, I believe he's going to be very beneficial for the whole offense. He's going to also, there's going to be less coverage on like Parker and Preston Williams. Hopefully he's healthy too. So it's going to be beneficial to them because Will Fuller is going to command a lot of attention, which is going to help everyone else in the offense just get open. And I'm still not sure. I believe that Will Fuller talent-wise should be the one, but I wouldn't be surprised if like Parker was still like the leading target getter and then, big plays to Fuller, because Fuller doesn't need a bunch of targets to be fantasy relevant. He just needs like 1 or 2 shots downfield. Boom. Sure. He's going to be a high-end wide receiver 2. I'm not going to go wide receiver 1. Like I think the fandom in me would hope that, but I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2 in fantasy. He's what we needed, right? We needed something to help us just be more dynamic. Our offense was one of the reasons why we didn't make it to the playoffs. Like we had a solid defense. The running game was decent with Myles Gaskin. Like he did really well, but overall there was things that stalled. The whole offense was just, it was boring, right? There's too many times we had to rely on our defense because our offense just couldn't get going. And I believe this addition really helps open things up, help us to take that next step in terms of being more explosive, more dynamic. So I'm really excited about 2021.
I'm excited for what it will do for Myles Gaskin as the lead Myles Gaskin stan. I feel like I don't know even how it happened, but I feel like Myles Gaskin is a player that I have ended up with more shares with than any other player. I've had so much Myles Gaskin. It's crazy. And I'm honestly, it's funny. I kept looking back at it last year, and I'm sure obviously you're aware because you're a Dolphins fan, but every time he's out there, I'm like, they are treating Myles Gaskin like a workhorse. Like every week it was double-digit carries, double-digit touches. Like I like Myles Gaskin, man. I hope that, he doesn't get replaced by somebody with an early draft pick, but I'm a Myles Gaskin guy.
But here's the thing, Myles Gaskin did everything pretty much you could have asked him to do. The only thing that he kind of little bit struggled with was like goal line work. So he's about like 200, right? He's about like a little under 200 pounds. If you got someone like Najee Harris, who's like 230, I believe that would be a really good compliment to him, right? A bigger body back. Myles Gaskin was a very good pass catcher, very explosive. But I think if you get someone like that in the backfield with him, or you have that tandem, I believe that'd be nice.
But Najee is that dude. I'm an Alabama guy. I'm an Alabama fan, so I don't want to have to root against Najee on the Dolphins. No, I'm just kidding. But Najee would be a problem down there for sure. Talking about, we were saying how Will Fuller could be a solid wide receiver too. This next guy, Curtis Samuel in Washington. Curtis Samuel is my dude. This is a guy that through the end of last season, as he was coming on, I was trying to acquire as much Curtis Samuel as I could. Pretty much whether it was regardless of where I thought he was going to be, whether it was in a new spot, whether it was sticking with the Panthers. Curtis Samuel, I think, is somebody that in Washington now, reunited with Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson in the backfield. This is a interesting group, an explosive group, and Fitzpatrick is going to target the wide receivers like crazy. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see Curtis Samuel still get used, and I hate to even say like a gadget role because I feel like that minimizes how good he is at certain things, but he's a unique player that can take some of those handoffs, can do some of the end around stuff, but he can absolutely be counted on in a traditional wide receiver role, inside, outside. And I think playing across from a guy like Terry McLaurin, who might be the most underrated wide receiver in football, honestly, as good as he is, but still doesn't feel like he gets the national love or hype that he really deserves. I think Curtis Samuel is right now, honestly, he's kind of a lock for like a top 20 finish for me. I really think he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver. I think that he was a top 24 wide receiver this past year, and that was playing with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback and also sharing the field with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So I know some of those guys missed time due to injury, but I think Curtis Samuel is easily a top 20 guy. I traded for as much of him as I could. I'm still trying to trade for him. I sent out offers for him today in a couple leagues. He's somebody I am very excited about. I'd love to hear what you have to say about him as well.
Oh, of course. Well, right now I'm not sending out any offers. He's too damn expensive right now. So I'm gonna wait on that. But Curtis Samuel, the hype finally caught up. Like the productions, finally caught up with the hype, right? For years, everybody's like Curtis Samuel, and it never came to fruition. This year, Joe Brady and Matt Rule were talking about different ways they're going to be using Curtis Samuel, right? In the beginning of the season, nothing happened. We were off with the same hype again. And they were using him like they said they were going to use him out of the backfield, just being heavily targeted. Like every way that we wanted Curtis Samuel to be used, he was used. And obviously going to the Washington offense with a gunslinger like Fitzpatrick, it's a fantasy match made in heaven. It's the fact that we're so excited about Washington football team. I'm still shocked how optimistic and happy I am about it. And also being able to play alongside Terry McLaurin and playing with a caliber of back like Antonio Gibson. I'm excited for all the pieces. So yes, I'm with you I'm extremely excited about Curtis Samuel. I don't have enough of him. I feel like I barely have any, but right now I'm not trying to buy because the hype is too crazy. I don't know when it's going to die down, but right now everyone's like, he's at a premium. But I believe it's deserved because he's going to be an explosive offense. And yeah, I just can't wait to see him actually play in 2021. And I'm just extremely excited about the whole Washington football team, which I can't believe I'm actually saying.
I know. I agree. It's nuts to be that excited about that many skill players from that team. And I agree. It is a premium. I sent out some offers that I thought were reasonable and was met with swift declines. So the price is very high. And rightfully so. The hype is there right now, and he balled out last year, and I'm really excited to see what he does and hopefully even more expanded opportunity this year. We'll wrap it up with a guy who didn't change teams. Juju Smith-Schuster stays with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That one's conflicting because I'm not surprised that Juju stayed in Pittsburgh when it kind of got clear that he was probably going to settle for a one-year deal. I know there was talk about Baltimore making a push for him, but if he was going to take a one-year deal, it always kind of made sense to me that it would be with Pittsburgh. He's still young enough that he could play on the 1 year and hopefully try and rehab that value a little bit more and hopefully cash in on a long-term deal next year when the cap, opens up for some teams again. The thing that's disappointing is I don't think that we're going to this year or maybe ever again in Pittsburgh get that Juju that we saw earlier on in his career when he was playing across from Antonio Brown. He's pretty much been cast into a role now with just shallow targets. Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are the future there. And even if they start using Juju in more of a downfield role again, I just don't think Ben has the arm for it. I think this year could get ugly for Pittsburgh. They have a great group of wide receivers, and there's reason to be optimistic about Deontay and Claypool long term. But I'm not excited about Juju this year. I think he's a low-end wide receiver too. But honestly, I would rather have both other Steelers wide receivers, both now and in the future. I have a hard time projecting what Juju's outlook looks like. This year, I don't think it's very good. And depending on where he ends up next year, if he's not going to have a great season in Pittsburgh this year, who knows if he'll get that long-term deal that he probably craves next year in the offseason as well.
Yeah. And when I heard that the Chiefs made him an offer, I really wanted him to go to the Chiefs because for obvious reasons, I don't got to tell you guys about the Chiefs. But Baltimore, I believe that Lamar is an underrated passer. But obviously the Baltimore Ravens are a run-first offense. The volume there would have been, it would have been unknown. So I'm kind of happy he didn't go to Baltimore. But I was definitely shocked. I was not expecting him to be a Steeler again. But he's going to be a wide receiver too, most likely. Just, Claypool, Deontay Johnson. especially Deontay Johnson. I believe he's the number one. He got targeted like crazy last year. Anytime he was healthy, no matter what, it didn't matter how many damn balls he dropped, he was
Didn't matter at all.
He got
Drops
like 10
don't
plus
matter.
targets. It doesn't matter.
Drops might be the statistic that everybody overreacts to the most. It's crazy, but as much as, like you said, you know, it leads the league in drops or whatever it was, but he got targeted an insane amount. It didn't matter at all.
And Juju, I believe, again, he's fine. It's just he's going to be he's going to have opportunity because I don't know what they're going to do with the running game. We'll see if they get that's the thing. They couldn't run the ball, so the passing offense, you know, all of them ate for the most part. You know, Deontay and Claypool a little bit more, but I believe they get a running game. It might also kind of hurt Juju, right? Because he has competition for targets. If they run the ball more, that's obviously going to take away passing opportunities. So I think Juju's going to be fine. I think it's a good fantasy move for him overall, but I don't think he gets like a value spike. I don't think he gets a dramatic decline either. I think he's fine, but the problem is he's still in a situation where he's going to be fighting for targets, and we're not, just like you said, we're not going to see Juju when Antonio Brown was there, and we saw him as the wide receiver 1, and that didn't work out. So he's just going to be a solid wide receiver 2, and that's fine. I like Juju, but you know, he's not going to be a wide receiver 1 anytime soon. So
yeah, I agree. It was almost a little bit of a relief when he didn't sign New York, though. I told some people privately, like, oh, if Juju signs with New York, I have to learn like a TikTok dance and like put it out there and, you know, do something real crazy.
I would have liked to see him I think that would have been better.
Yeah, it would have been fun in New York. Yeah, I was all aboard, you know, bringing Juju in. It felt kind of logical if they were going to do it. It was like, oh, okay, you know, swap Crowder's salary for whatever you're going to pay Juju. But if he was going to take a 1-year deal, I could have never seen him taking a 1 year unless they told him like straight out, okay, we're going to run it back with Darnold. Like, you know, you play with your college guy. If you want to come do that, I guess there was a chance. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think he is a solid low-end wide receiver too, and that's not a bad thing. You need those guys in fantasy too. You can't, you know, not every roster is stacked with guys that are top 12 at their position, you know, 3 or 4 deep. You need guys that are locked in solid wide receiver 2s as well. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I know free agency is a whirlwind for everybody, so I appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy schedule to join me and have a good conversation. And please, one more time, plug wherever you can find all your work so that everybody can check it out if they aren't already. And if they're not, they're messing up. So check out Troy's work.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, Anthony, first, thank you so much for having me, man. This has been a fun conversation. Again, I love chopping it up with you. And for everybody listening and watching, you can find me at TKing Mode on Twitter. Again, I am a contributor to Football Guys, so I'm going to be having video content coming out soon, but check out for one of my articles that's coming out this week. I'm not going to tell you what it is too much. I'll leave it as a surprise. And also, I'm one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential. We are on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. During the off season, we are going every other Wednesday. But we're going to have some amazing guests, so check us out. And thank you, everybody who's been supporting me.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we'll do it again soon. It was great talking to you. Great kind of getting to finally meet you face-to-face over video.
Oh, man, it's been a blast. Thank you so much again.
No problem. Thanks, man.